All right. Um, so today we're going over Islam. It's one of the Abrahamic religions. But before we go over Islam, what you need to do is go to your Unit Zero notes and vocab. Um, Now your notes ended here with Jesus of Nazareth. It's actually week 3. So that needs to be changed to week 3. And then you'll be adding you have this, right? You have this and you have this. Well, what I need you to do is add a couple of slides that I did not, so they'll just be blank. So go to slide and just put new slide, slide, new slide. So now as you can see here, I have the beginning and then these two slides. So you can add to the notes. Now the notes that I have are, there's some graphics on there. You don't have to put all the graphics. Just write the notes here. If it gets confusing, you don't have a text box here. So there's one of two things you can do. You can insert a text box here, and then you could just start typing. Um, or or uh, you could go to slide, apply layout, title and content, and it automatically creates a slide that has content. So do that first. And now we're going to get started with Islam. Islam is a religion that came after Christianity. They all believe in the same thing. So let's get started on to see what, again, remember the focus is the beliefs of Islam and how it affected society. So we're going to do um, a quick lecture on Islam, and then we're going to do a short answer question. Not here in the video, but you'll do that on your own. So again, this is Afro-Eurasia. And in Afro-Eurasia, you had in China, that's where Confucianism started. We went over that first. Hinduism in India, um, Buddhism in India, then it spread to Asia. Judaism started in the Middle East. Christianity also started in the Middle East. And Islam. So all three of those religions started in the Middle East. And like I said, uh, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are considered Abrahamic religions because they all come from the beliefs of Abraham. They all believe in a lot of the same prophets. Um, so Islam is kind of like the granddaughter of Judaism. That's how I like to think about it. So let's think about how and where Islam began. How did it start and where it started? It started in the Arabian Peninsula, which you can see here. You can see that here. Um, it is mainly desert there, that Arabian Peninsula. So it's a very dry, hot environment. So it supports nomadic pastoralists, people that go from place to place with their livestock, from oasis to oasis. These pastoralists were quite egalitarian, more egalitarian than the people that lived in the cities, because their base was their clan or their kinship group. Um, and Muhammad, who started Islam, was raised by Bedouins. Then later on, he becomes part of the Quraysh tribe. So once again, this is a society that is at its backbone tribal. So you belong to a tribe, you belong to a kin group, because you depend on each other while traveling this desert. All right. It also this environment also allowed for cities, and one of those cities was Mecca. It was a center of trade, as you could see. You have um, Europe here and China. You can't see it, but China's right here, so it's in the middle. You have Africa here, so it was kind of in the middle of everything, and it was quite profitable. Uh, it also wasn't just profitable because of merchants, but it was also the center of religion. Uh, in Mecca, they have what they call the Kaaba, and I'll show you a picture in a little bit. The Kaaba is this building that basically where they housed a lot of these idols from different religions. These idols they were prayed to by a lot of different merchants. Those they would come, they would trade, and they would go pray at the Kaaba. The Quraysh tribe controlled Mecca and controlled the trade and controlled prayer there. Muhammad was a merchant and a member of this Quraysh tribe. So this is the context. So you need to understand that Muhammad was exposed not just to um, polytheism and a lot of these different religions, but he was also exposed to Christianity and to Judaism. So he was exposed to monotheism and the belief of a single God. Um, so here is the Kaaba, and then where people would go pray. So a little bit about Muhammad. Muhammad um, married a rich widow, uh, Khadijah. She afforded him the life of being able to like go away for every now and again and in solitude. And this is a cave that he went to. When he went to this cave, apparently, the story goes, the angel Gabriel came down and spoke to him and gave him the word of God and told him that people should believe in one single God and not necessarily what he was seeing with all these different idols in the Kaaba. And at first he was reluctant, but then his friends and family convinced him that this was the word of God, and they started uh, praying, and they started exposing other folks to the belief in one God in this area. So here is a rendering. As you could see, in Islam, it is forbidden for them to show the image because he didn't want to become or people praying to him as if he were uh, a god. He said he was a prophet only, and that he was the last prophet of Islam. So in Islam, you're not allowed to show the image of Muhammad. And everywhere you see, it's like sacrilegious for them to even do that. Um, so what is the belief system? The belief system um, of Islam, or what the followers of Islam, Muslims follow, is the Quran. That's their holy book. That's like their Bible. Those are the words of God given to Muhammad. And the five pillars is what they're supposed to follow. It's kind of like the Ten Commandments. So the first pillar is declaration of faith, and that means that there's only one God, and Muhammad is his prophet. And the word for God in Arabic is Allah. So there is only Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, is the first of the pillars. And like I said, as you see, this is Muhammad, and he's going around uh, spreading the word and having people believe that there is only one God. Um, and again, they also believe in some of the same prophets as Jews and Christians. These are some of the major prophets in Islam, and that's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Solomon. They also believe in Jesus Christ, but they only believe that Jesus was a man and a prophet of Allah, and not necessarily the Son of God, or that he was um, that he was divine in some way. So here is a rendering uh, in the Quran of uh, the wise men, right? Here's a rendering of Mary. So in the Quran, they do talk about Mary and Jesus and how they were, you know, spreading the word of God. That's Jesus on the right, spreading the word of God. And here you see some writings in the Quran, right? Indeed, those who believe in those who were Jews and Christians before the Prophet Muhammad, those who believe in Allah and the last day and did righteousness will have their reward with the Lord. and no fear will there be concerning them, nor will they grieve. You see, again, in the Quran, and the nearest among them in love to the believers you'll find are those who say, we are Christians, because amongst these men are devoted to learning, and men who have denounced the world, and they are not arrogant. So, in other words, in the Quran, and Muslims at the time when it started believed that Christians and Jews were what they called people of the book. So they were like basically cool with them. Here's another one. Oh, you who believe, be helpers of God, as Jesus, the son of Mary, said to the disciples, you will be my helpers in the work of God. Said the disciples, we are God's helpers. Then a portion of the children of Israel believed, and a portion disbelieved, but we gave power to those who believed against the enemies, and they became the ones that prevailed. So once again, you see some of the beliefs in Judaism and some of the beliefs of Christianity in Islam. And the main belief is that there is only one God, and it's the same God. So just to put it in your heads, the same God that Jews pray to is the same God that Christians pray to, and the same God that Muslims pray to. And yeah, that's Mookie Betts in the background. Mookie! Go Dodgers. So, the second of the 5 pillars is to pray 5 times a day. Obligatory prayer. Obligatory. You're supposed to pray. So if you, like I lived in LA in an area where there were a lot of Muslims, and you would see folks go out every so often and put out their prayer mats and pray. They're supposed to be facing Mecca. And the only way you're not supposed to pray is if you are sick, or if you have not gone through puberty, or you're menstruating. So you see them facing Mecca because they're facing the Kaaba. Right? The third one is giving to the poor. Compulsory giving. You should be giving 1/40th of your income should be donated to the poor. Okay. The fourth one is Ramadan. Ramadan is fasting. Now it's in the lunar calendar, so it changes months gradually. And you're supposed to not eat during the day. The only time you can eat is when the sun goes down. So what people do is they don't eat throughout the day, and it makes it hard. I've had students that are Muslim, and they're in class when we used to do live, and they couldn't eat, so they couldn't really concentrate. But as soon as you go home, the sun goes down, then you have a big feast, and you try to eat. The last one is a pilgrimage to Mecca, or the Hajj. You're supposed to, if you have the money, the means, and the health, make at least one trip to Mecca. And that is supposed to show, it's a symbol of the devotion to Allah, or God, and the equality of all Muslims. And people that have made that trip say that that's one of the first shocking things that they see when they go, and that they see Muslims. You see all these people praying around the Kaaba. So they pray, they walk around it in circles. That they see folks of all backgrounds and of all countries praying in the Kaaba and making the Hajj, making the pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay, once again, the Hajj.
You might be familiar with this picture. Thousands upon thousands of people, all wearing the same clothes and gathering somewhere in Saudi Arabia. This is the Hajj, the Muslim pilgrimage, and here are 7 things about it that you probably didn't know. You might have seen this, the big black cube. The Kaaba is a huge stone structure that sits at the heart of the Grand Mosque, Islam's most sacred place of worship. Pilgrims circle the Kaaba counterclockwise 7 times at both the beginning and the end of Hajj. It's a ritual called Tawaf. Pilgrims also typically travel back and forth between 2 hills called Safa and Marwa for also 7 times. It's not entirely clear why it's 7 specifically, but 7 is a prominent number associated with the divine in many religions, including Christianity and Judaism. It might surprise you to know that the Hajj generally has very little to do with the Prophet Muhammad. It actually commemorates the life of another prophet, Ibrahim. Yes, Abraham, who is also a key figure in both Judaism and Christianity. He was the one who rebuilt the Kaaba with his son Ismail. And Hajj rituals mostly follow the struggle of Ibrahim, his wife and son in surrendering their wills to God. We've heard a lot of debates in the West about Muslims' face veil or niqab. Well, one place where it's definitely not allowed is on the Hajj. Women are expected to cover their hair with headscarves similar to mine, but the face veil and burqa are not permitted in Hajj. You know what else? The pilgrimage industry is Saudi Arabia's second most important after oil and gas. The tourism sector contributes $22.6 billion to Saudi Arabia's economy, with Hajj providing nearly half of it. And the Hajj is really expensive. The average price of a Hajj package ranges between $4,000 up to $10,000 here in the UK. Selfies? Not welcomed in Hajj. The Saudi authorities forbid taking photographs, whether with camera or a mobile phone, at some of the holy sites. Any violation of official instruction could lead to confiscation of your device. The idea is to make pilgrims focus entirely on their spiritual journey. But this is not easy to enforce when you have millions of people all keen to have a memory from the once-in-a-lifetime journey. The Hajj takes 5 days, and towards the end of it comes Eid al-Adha, or the festival of sacrifice. Muslims worldwide celebrate by slaughtering an animal, usually a sheep. This is another part of the ritual that relates to Prophet Ibrahim. It commemorates the willingness of Ibrahim to sacrifice his son Ismail as an act of obedience to God before God intervened to provide him with a ram to sacrifice instead. Finally, performing a Hajj is considered a great accomplishment for Muslims. In some cultures, people even add the title in front of their names to signify their accomplishments, so they are Haji. The Hajj absolves Muslims of past sins, so before the Hajji-to-be travels to Mecca, it's very common for people to ask their relatives, friends and acquaintances to forgive them.
All right. So I'm hoping you guys got that. Muhammad then creates a whole new society with Islam. And what is this new society? This new society is called the Ummah, a community of believers bound by Islam. Now, this Ummah, or this idea of the Ummah, of people bound together by culture and bound by religion, kind of flies in the face of the tribal beliefs and the tribal ties. So the Quraysh tribe was like, "Yo, dude, you're not doing this right." So automatically he was making rivals, similar like Jesus was making rivals in the Roman Empire, and Buddha was making rivals in India due to his beliefs on the caste system. So this Ummah talked about equality, including the equality of orphans and women. Remember, at that time, Muhammad's wife was also a merchant, so his beliefs and the beliefs that he asked people to believe in was where women kind of got a lot more rights than in other places in the world at the time. Also, Muslims were asked to commit to a jihad, or that is the struggle or fight against enemies of Islam. So you think, what do you mean? Oh, is this fighting? Most people think of the idea of jihad as though those terrorists and stuff. That's not necessarily the whole definition. It says here they declared a jihad against the infidels. Jihad is actually the second definition, or a more important definition, is the spiritual struggle. The word jihad means struggle. So the spiritual struggle within oneself against sin. So, it's people's interpretation of the word jihad and people's interpretation of the struggle. You could say that people were asked to basically convert folks to believe in one God, and that could be the struggle, not necessarily to bomb things and destroy folks. That's a very small amount of people that do that in the religion. So, once again, the Quran is the holy text that includes the word of God given to Muhammad, but there are also some supplemental texts. some texts that that Muslims follow. And so there are, or hadiths. There are different hadiths. Okay, this is a collection of sayings and stories about the Prophet Muhammad. Now, not all hadiths and not all stories are the same, and not all are accepted. It depends on the sourcing. Some are reliable and some are not reliable. So in some communities, some hadiths are believed. In other communities, other hadiths are believed. Um, so again, it depends on the sourcing, and they're not all the same. And then there's Sharia law. Those are bodies of Islamic law. Those that also changes and is different depending on the country. Um, but basically, that's the laws that people have to follow in the individual countries or individual places. Again, Sharia law, Islamic law is what you could call it. You have to know both of these, especially Sharia law, when we start talking about government and governments that empires, Islamic empires later on. So, Muhammad is a political leader. We see here, this is Mecca, and this is Medina. So keep that in mind. These two cities are kind of close to each other. And Muhammad is from Mecca. And like I said, he starts saying all these things about how we're all equal and that we should follow one God and that we should all be brothers and sisters in one community, to forget all of these tribal ties and all that stuff. You know, the Quraysh tribe was like, "What do you mean, one God? What about us? You know, we need to make money." For them, it was not good financially, or they thought so, that they should throw away all those idols, or that they should believe in one God. It was going to interfere with their income, so they kick him out. So the Quraysh tribe forced Muhammad into exile, into Medina. That exile, that trip from Mecca to Medina in Islam, for Muslims, that marks the year zero. So their calendar begins um, that year. Um, that's approximately around the year 620 something. I don't know what it is exactly. Uh, Muhammad gets his people together. He happens to be a good general. He happens to be a good political leader. So he comes back in the year 630 and he reconquers Mecca. He gets all the idols, cracks them, boom, gets them out. Um, and he begins to conquer the Arabian Peninsula. Um, so that is one of the big differences between Muhammad and Jesus Christ. He's actually not just a religious leader, but is also a general and a political leader. He takes over an area and builds his own country, so that he creates his own community, his ummah, um, so that when he dies, religion and politics stay combined. So they have a culture, they have a tradition where the government and religion are one and the same. Whereas in the West, we have a religion where we have a tradition, I mean, a tradition where religion and politics are supposed to be separate. There's a separation of church and state here, and that's our tradition. Well, their tradition in during this time was that it was one and the same, and leaders were also political leaders. So the first caliph or leader was Ali. And there began a struggle between who's supposed to be the next caliph or the next leader. And the question was, were they supposed to be the family of Muhammad, who has Muhammad's blood, or who they consider the best general, the best leader? So those people that believed that it should be the most suited person and somebody that should be picked became Sunnis, and those that believe that it should be Muhammad's family were considered Shiites. And even to this day, there is a split in Islam between Sunnis and Shiites. Their core belief system is the same, but it is the belief in who's supposed to be the leader that makes the difference between Sunnis and Shiites. I'll give you guys a fuller explanation, or the same explanation, later on. You don't have to write those notes now. I mean, you can, so that when you write them again later, you will be fine. And from this caliph, other caliphs take over, and Islam begins to be spread all over the Arabian Peninsula, all over North Africa, all over the Middle East, soon all over West Africa. If you notice, it stops here. in Tours. The Franks actually defeated Muslims here, so Islam stopped at Spain. Um, and later on it'll spread here. You'll see it spreads here. But in this area here in Europe, Christianity remains. Okay, so that's it. You should now be ready to have to be able to create a short answer question for those directions. You'll be doing that live.